They're accused of lashing out in anger, of intending to cause serious injury. PC Benjamin Monk in the black mask denies murder and manslaughter. Next to him, PC Mary Ellen Betley Smith, who denies assault. The jury at Birmingham Crown Court heard that the two officers were in a relationship at the time of the incident, and that if it wasn't for their actions, Dalian Atkinson would still be alive. 48-year-old Mr. Atkinson had enjoyed a career as a successful footballer, most notably for Aston Villa between 91 and 95. After retiring in 2001, Mr. Atkinson had had a number of serious health issues, including high blood pressure and heart disease. He was also on dialysis. The jury was told that whilst these underlying health conditions meant the footballer was at an increased risk of dying, if it wasn't for the way he was tasered and kicked, he would not have died. In the early hours of August 15, 2016, Mr. Atkinson went to his father's house in Telford. According to witnesses, he was agitated, distressed, and shouting that he was the Messiah. A neighbour called 999. The prosecution said the police were confronted with a man clearly acting in a disturbed and erratic way, and that they were entitled to use reasonable force to defend themselves, but the behaviour of the accused officers went beyond this. PC Monk tasered Mr. Atkinson twice to no effect. He then fired again. According to the prosecutor, Mr. Atkinson's death was caused by the police officer's actions. PC Monk tasered the footballer. The jury heard that when a taser trigger is pulled, it emits a 5-second burst of electricity, but PC Monk overrode this, holding the trigger for 33 seconds. He then kicked the footballer so hard that it left an imprint. The jury heard distressing evidence from some of the neighbours, who said after he was tasered, Mr. Atkinson fell to the ground and was unresponsive, no longer posing a threat. PC Monk then delivered a massive and powerful kick to his head, as though he were kicking a football. PC Betley Smith hit the footballer repeatedly with her baton. Mr. Atkinson's brother was in court and listened as the jury were told the two officers then sat on the footballer to handcuff him. A witness described Dalian Atkinson as making horrendous noises, clearly having trouble breathing. Both police officers deny the charges against them, and the trial is expected to last until June. The court heard that PC Monk had served 14 years with West Mercia Police at the time of the incident. He'd been trained to use a taser in 2010 and then retrained in May 2016. That's just 3 months before this incident. By contrast, the prosecution say, PC Betley Smith was by some margin considerably less experienced. Now, the prosecution say that when the officers arrived at Mr. Atkinson's house, the footballer was clearly agitated and distressed. A neighbour says that at one point he smashed the window of his dad's house. The prosecution say that officers had every right to defend themselves and one another. But this case centres on what happened when that third taser shot was fired, on the length of time that the trigger was held for, and when Mr. Atkinson was lying there unconscious and unresponsive, when he was assaulted with a baton and kicked. Now, the prosecution alleged that when the ambulance turned up, Mr. PC Monk was alleged to have said to them, "He may be a bit bloody, I've had to kick him." Both officers deny all of the charges against them, and tomorrow the prosecution will continue to outline their case against them.